The palace of the Aurelians stretched high above the clouds of the planet Aranthia, its towers of shining crystal catching the light of the twin suns. From the outer walls, the city below seemed small and distant, with rivers that glittered like silver threads and forests that swayed gently in the wind. The Aurelians, the rulers of this world and many nearby star systems, had always seen themselves as superior, wise, strong, and ancient beyond counting years. Every visitor, every envoy, every alien race that came to Aranthia carried the same understanding. Humans were weak, fragile, and unremarkable. But Princess Lyra thought differently. She paced her private garden, her long, silvery robes brushing the luminous flowers that bloomed only in the palace air. The humans had arrived 3 days ago, carried in their small but sturdy starship. Lyra had watched them through her crystal viewport, fascinated by the way they moved, spoke, and interacted. There was something in their faces, something alive and fiery, that made her question everything she had been taught. Why do they not seem afraid? She asked herself. Why do they smile even in this alien palace, surrounded by beings far stronger than themselves? Her hand rested on the railing as she observed the humans walking through the palace courtyard. Their leader, Captain Mara Hayes, moved with confidence, her shoulders straight, eyes bright. Unlike many Aurelians who relied on their powers and technology to show strength, Mara seemed ordinary. Yet there was an energy about her, a kind of courage that Lyra could feel even from a distance. Lyra turned and went to the balcony doors of her private chamber. She summoned her advisor, Elder Terran, a tall, pale-skinned Aurelian with eyes that reflected the colors of the palace lights. Elder Terran, Lyra began, I want to speak to the human captain. I wish to understand them. Terran raised a thin silver eyebrow. Your Highness, humans are different. They are weak, fragile creatures. What could you possibly learn from them that is worth your attention? Lyra did not flinch. She had expected the objection. Strength is not always what it seems, Elder. I sense there is something in them that we have never considered. I must know why humans endure, why they dare to explore the stars even when the universe is against them. Send word to Captain Mara. I will meet her tomorrow. Terran hesitated but finally nodded. As you wish, Princess. But know that many in the palace may consider this unwise. The next morning, Lyra descended to the human quarters. The hallways were bright with crystal lights and smooth walls, yet they had a simplicity the palace rarely showed. Mara stood in the center of the room studying a map of Aranthia's star systems. Her uniform was neat, practical, with pockets full of tools rather than ornaments. Lyra noticed the way Mara's eyes scanned every detail, measuring, planning, learning. Princess Lyra, Mara said with a respectful bow. It is an honor to meet you. The honor is mine, Captain Hayes, Lyra replied, trying to keep her curiosity from showing too much. I have watched your people since you arrived. I see courage, determination, and yet you are small, fragile. Why do humans continue when every challenge seems greater than your strength? Mara smiled softly. She put down her map and studied Lyra as if weighing her words. We humans are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the largest, she said. But we have something else. We have hope and we have the will to keep going. Our history is full of challenges, but every time we fall, we get back up. That is our strength, Lyra tilted her head. She had heard stories of human history from visiting scholars, but she had never felt it as strongly as she did now, standing in front of Mara. But surely there must be fear. Doubt, weakness, Lyra said. Mara nodded. Of course there is. Fear is natural. Doubt is natural. But we do not let them control us. We learn from our mistakes, we help one another, and we continue moving forward. That is why humans explore the stars. That is why we survive even when the universe seems too big, too dangerous, or too unfair. The princess was silent. She walked closer to the human captain and observed her carefully. There was a quiet honesty in Mara's eyes, a calm confidence that did not demand respect yet earned it naturally. Lyra had never seen an Aurelian move with such humility and strength combined. I want to understand this, Lyra said finally. I want to see it in action. You speak of persistence, of hope, of courage. I want to know if it is real. Mara's smile widened. Then you will see, Princess. Humans prove themselves not just with words, but with deeds. Lyra spent the next few hours walking with Mara around the palace. The courtiers whispered as the princess moved through the halls, flanked by the human captain. Some were amused, some worried. but Lyra felt a sense of excitement she had never felt before. She asked questions about the human starship, their travels, their encounters with other species. Mara answered every question patiently, often showing a sense of humor in her explanations. As they walked, they passed the palace training grounds, where Aurelian soldiers practiced with their energy blades. Mara paused and watched. "Humans train differently," she said quietly. "We learn not only to fight but to adapt, to think, to survive in situations we cannot predict." Lyra nodded slowly. She could see the difference immediately. The Aurelians relied on raw power and skill, but humans relied on creativity, problem-solving, and collaboration. There was an elegance in that method, a kind of intelligence that complemented strength rather than imitating it. That evening, Lyra returned to her chambers and sat by the window overlooking the twin suns as they sank below the horizon. She thought of Mara and the humans she had met. The words echoed in her mind. "We have hope and we have the will to keep going." Could this be true? Could such a fragile species possess a power stronger than the strongest Aurelian? The idea fascinated her. For the first time, Lyra felt that humans might not just survive. They might one day surpass even the Aurelians in ways she could not yet imagine. Her thoughts were interrupted by Elder Terran, who entered quietly. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "your fascination with the humans. It is unprecedented. The palace will question your judgment if this continues. You must be cautious." "I am not concerned with the palace," Lyra replied firmly. "I am concerned with the truth. There is something in humans that we do not understand, and I intend to see it for myself." Terran bowed. "As you wish, Princess. But remember, curiosity can be dangerous." Lyra smiled softly. "Perhaps, but sometimes curiosity is the beginning of understanding." The next day, the palace announced a public audience. Princess Lyra invited the human delegation to join her in the grand hall. Courtiers gathered, murmuring among themselves. Many were skeptical, some openly dismissive, but Lyra's eyes were fixed on Mara. She wanted the entire palace to witness the humans not as weak creatures, but as beings capable of courage, resilience, and ingenuity. Mara stood with quiet confidence. She did not boast, did not demand attention, yet every eye in the hall could feel her presence. Lyra realized something remarkable. Humans did not need to intimidate or control others to be respected. Their strength came from a deeper place, their will, their heart, and their unity. As the audience began, Lyra stepped forward. "Today," she said, her voice echoing in the crystalline hall, "we welcome our human visitors. They are small and young compared to our long lives, yet there is a light in them we have ignored for too long. I wish to learn from them, to see their courage, and perhaps to understand a different kind of strength." The hall was silent. Some courtiers whispered, some exchanged uneasy glances, but Mara remained composed, her expression calm and thoughtful. She nodded to the princess. "We are ready, Princess Lyra," she said simply. For the first time in centuries, the palace paused to watch, not with judgment, but with curiosity. And in that moment, the seeds of change began to grow. Lyra knew that this was only the beginning. Questions would lead to answers. Answers would lead to challenges, and challenges would reveal the truth. She did not yet know how far this journey would take her, or how deeply it would change the palace's view of humans. But one thing was certain: she would follow it wherever it led, because the answer might reveal something far greater than anyone had imagined. The next morning, the palace awoke to a brilliant light that bathed the crystalline towers in golden hues. Princess Lyra walked briskly through the corridors, her mind alive with thoughts of the humans. She could not stop thinking about Captain Mara Hayes and the strange quiet strength that seemed to radiate from her. Every Aurelian in the palace relied on power, skill, or technology to prove themselves, but Mara showed none of these. Her presence alone was enough to command attention. The humans were gathered in the palace council hall, waiting patiently. Unlike the grand halls the Aurelians used for ceremonies, this room was simpler, practical, and perfectly suited to the humans' needs. Mara stood near the center, her eyes scanning the hall, her posture calm yet firm. The other humans moved quietly, observing their surroundings, but they were relaxed, as if the palace itself could not intimidate them. Princess Lyra approached, and the courtiers fell silent. Their eyes followed her every move, some in admiration, some in doubt. She stopped in front of Mara and raised her hand, signaling for attention. "Today," she began, her voice clear and measured, "I will ask a question that I believe none of us truly know the answer to. Captain Hayes, I wish to understand why humans continue even when the universe is against them. Why do you fight, explore, and survive even when the odds are clearly against your kind?" The hall grew quiet, the silence heavy with curiosity. Many Aurelians had never spoken to humans so directly, much less asked them to explain their spirit. Some looked skeptical, others amused, but all watched intently. Mara's eyes met Lyra's. She nodded once and began speaking. "Humans are not strong in the ways you are used to. We are not as fast or as long-lived or as powerful as many species we meet. But we have something different, something no technology, no weapon, and no natural ability can replace. We have determination, hope, and the will to rise again after every fall." She paused, letting the words sink in. Lyra felt a stir of excitement. She had expected pride, perhaps even fear, but not such calm honesty. Mara continued, "Our history is full of setbacks. There are countless times when humans were pushed to the edge, wars, disasters, mistakes, yet we always found a way forward. Sometimes it was clever thinking, sometimes it was teamwork, and sometimes it was just sheer refusal to give up. That is why we continue." A murmur ran through the hall. Some courtiers whispered among themselves, skeptical. "Weak creatures," one said quietly. Another shook his head. "Empty words. Words do not change reality." Lyra held up her hand, silencing them. "Listen," she said firmly. "This is more than words. Observe and you will understand." Just as she spoke, a sudden alarm rang throughout the palace. Lights flashed and the hum of machinery grew louder. The energy core of the palace, the source of life, light, and power for the entire complex, was unstable. Reports came in from engineers. A failure deep within the system threatened to overload the core and cause massive damage. Panic spread quickly among the courtiers. The Aurelians were trained for every emergency, yet this time their best engineers could not stabilize the core. "Calm yourselves," Princess Lyra said, though her own pulse quickened. She looked at Mara. "This is the moment. Show us what your kind can do." Mara's expression did not change. "We can help," she said. "If you allow it." "Allow it?" one counselor exclaimed. "Do you see what you are suggesting? You wish to let a human, fragile and inexperienced, solve a problem that our finest engineers cannot." Lyra ignored him. "I allow it," she said simply. "If the human captain succeeds, it will teach us far more than words ever could." Mara moved quickly, joined by a few of her crew. They entered the energy chamber, a massive space filled with glowing conduits and humming machines. The heat was intense and the core pulsed like a living heart. Aurelians had trained in these chambers for years. Yet Mara approached the problem with calm observation. She studied the core carefully, analyzing patterns, listening to the hums and vibrations, tracing connections with her hands. The Aurelians had always relied on raw power and precise formulas to solve problems, but Mara worked differently. She tried small adjustments first, testing each one carefully, learning from even minor mistakes. Hours passed. The core continued to pulse dangerously, and tension in the chamber grew. Some Aurelian engineers grew frustrated, their hands trembling as they demanded that Mara leave. "It is too dangerous." "You are human." Mara remained patient. "I will not give up," she said. "We will solve this together." Step by step, Lyra watched from above, heart pounding. She realized then what Mara had meant by strength. It was not speed or size or age, it was persistence, focus, and the refusal to surrender, even when all seemed lost. The human team worked tirelessly. They communicated, adapted, and problem-solved with creativity the Aurelians had never seen. When one method failed, they quickly tried another. When a conduit overheated, they cooled it with a clever device, not brute force. They moved as a team, each human supporting the other. By the evening, a dangerous surge threatened to overwhelm the core again. Some engineers began to despair, muttering that the palace itself might be lost. Mara did not panic. She instructed Lyra to gather additional materials from the humans' equipment and make small adjustments to the system. The princess obeyed, astonished at Mara's calm authority and clarity. Finally, after hours of tireless work, a quiet click echoed through the chamber. The pulsing of the core slowed, then stabilized. Lights returned to their steady glow. The danger was over. The courtiers who had watched the entire process were silent. They had never seen a human act with such precision, courage, and wisdom. Some faces betrayed disbelief. Others awe. Lyra descended to the chamber, her eyes shining. "You have seen," she said softly, "the strength that comes not from power but from the will to persevere. Captain Hayes and her team have shown what humans are capable of." Mara looked around at the assembled Aurelians. "We do not ask for admiration," she said. "We only wish to show that determination, teamwork, and persistence can solve even the most difficult problems. Strength comes in many forms. Do not measure it by size or age or skill alone." The courtiers began to murmur, slowly at first, then more loudly. Conversations erupted about what they had witnessed. Humans, they realized, were not weak. They were resilient, inventive, and capable of achieving what many considered impossible. Princess Lyra felt a deep satisfaction. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. She turned to Mara. "You have changed more than this chamber today," she said. "You have changed the way this palace sees your people. You have shown us that strength is not what we thought it was." Mara smiled, tired but proud. "Then our work is done. Sometimes it is not the strongest hand or the fastest mind that matters. It is the willingness to keep trying when the outcome is uncertain." As the sun set over Aranthia, the palace lights shone brighter than ever, reflecting not only from crystal towers but from a new understanding. Humans were no longer simply visitors. They were teachers, examples, and perhaps even friends who would change the course of history in ways the Aurelians had never imagined. Princess Lyra watched Mara and the human team leave the energy chamber. She felt a growing excitement, a curiosity she could not contain. The question she had asked that morning, why humans continue despite the odds, had been answered. And the answer was not a simple explanation of history or strength. It was a demonstration of courage, teamwork, and persistence. For the first time, the palace truly understood what it meant to be human. And for Princess Lyra, it was only the beginning. She knew that more questions would come, more challenges would test both humans and Aurelians, and more lessons would unfold. But one thing was certain. Humans were far more remarkable than anyone in the palace had ever imagined, and the world of Aranthia would never see them the same way again. The days after the energy core incident passed quickly, but the palace was no longer the same. Whispers of the human success filled the corridors. Courtiers who once dismissed them now paused to watch their every move, some in quiet awe, others in disbelief. Princess Lyra felt a subtle shift in the palace's mood, curiosity replacing scorn, respect slowly replacing skepticism. But she also knew that admiration alone was not enough. True understanding would come only if the humans were tested again. Lyra summoned Captain Mara Hayes to her private garden. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting golden shadows across the crystalline floor. Lyra approached the human captain, who was quietly inspecting some small plants that seemed to glow under the alien sunlight. "Captain," Lyra began, "I have watched you, and I have seen your strength. But one success does not prove everything. There is another matter that requires attention, and I wish for you to lead." Mara straightened. "I am ready, Princess." "What is the task?" Lyra gestured toward the horizon. "The palace fields are protected by an ancient defense system. It is meant to respond to external threats automatically, but a small anomaly has appeared in the system. It could trigger unintended responses that might harm the surrounding lands. Our engineers cannot fully understand the source. You must investigate." Some Aurelians nearby whispered doubts. The defense system was complex, designed with calculations and energy fields that no human could fully comprehend. Mara smiled faintly, undeterred. "We will do what we can," she said. The human team followed Mara to the fields. The defenses were unlike anything humans had seen before. Floating energy barriers, pulsing nodes, and shimmering grids of power stretching across the plains. The system was highly advanced, built over centuries, yet Mara approached it with the calm focus that had earned her respect in the energy core chamber. She studied the anomaly carefully. Unlike the Aurelians, who often relied on brute force to shut down malfunctioning systems, Mara used observation and reasoning. She tested small sections, noting each reaction. When a node flickered dangerously, she adjusted its input gently rather than overpowering it. Hours passed, and Aurelians began to gather at the edge of the fields. They whispered in disbelief as they watched a human calmly navigating a system they themselves had struggled to control. "Do you see?" Lyra asked softly to one elder. Strength is not measured by size or power. It is measured by persistence, thought, and adaptability. The elder could not respond, his usual pride silenced by awe. Meanwhile, Mara noticed a deeper problem. The anomaly was not caused by a single flaw, but by multiple small irregularities across the system. No Aurelian engineer could detect such subtle interactions quickly. Mara turned to her team. "Listen carefully," she said. "We need to approach this systematically. One node at a time. Check interactions, and communicate what you find. Remember, every small adjustment counts." The humans split up, carefully analyzing the fields. They worked in harmony, sharing observations, helping each other, and adapting to new data. Mara coordinated them with calm authority, yet without commanding anyone unnecessarily. Each adjustment brought the system closer to stability, yet the problem was complex, testing their patience and intelligence at every step. Suddenly, a pulse of energy surged through the field, stronger than expected. One of the barriers sparked dangerously, and a few of the smaller nodes began to fail. Panic began to ripple through the observing Aurelians. "Step back," shouted a young engineer. "This is too dangerous." Mara did not panic. She knelt beside the failing node and studied it carefully. "Do not be afraid," she said. "We can correct this. Watch and learn." She instructed a few of her crew to reroute minor energy flows while others recalibrated the node's connections. Mara moved swiftly but carefully, adjusting patterns that no human had trained to understand in advance. Slowly, the pulses of energy stabilized. The failing node stopped sparking and the system returned to equilibrium. The courtiers gasped. The humans had prevented what could have been a disaster. They had solved a problem that had baffled the palace for generations. Princess Lyra stepped forward, her voice echoing across the fields. "You have seen again what humans can do. It is not their strength in arms or energy alone. It is their courage, their cleverness, and their refusal to surrender. That is their power." Mara nodded, though she looked tired. "This is what humans are. We may not always be the fastest or strongest, but we do not give up. We adapt, we learn, and we support each other." An elder Aurelian who had watched silently stepped forward. "It is remarkable. I admit I have underestimated your kind. We believed strength meant power, control, and skill in isolation. But you have shown us something new. Your strength is in persistence and unity." Mara smiled gently. "Exactly. Strength is not a single measure. It is found in the will to continue, even when the odds seem impossible." The palace witnessed a transformation that day. What had started as curiosity now became understanding. Where once humans had been dismissed as weak, now their spirit could not be ignored. Lyra observed carefully, knowing that this was the moment when perceptions began to change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the palace lights reflected off the fields, casting long shadows of the humans working side by side with the Aurelians. It was not just the humans who were proving themselves. It was the collaboration between species, the blending of perspectives, that created something greater than either could achieve alone. Princess Lyra approached Mara as the team completed their work. "You have done more than solve a technical problem," she said. "You have shown the palace a new way to see the universe and ourselves." Mara shook her head. "I have only done what humans do every day. We face challenges, adapt, and continue. That is all." "No," Lyra said firmly. "This is more. You have proven that courage, intelligence, and persistence can achieve what brute strength cannot. You have changed the way this palace and soon the Empire will see humans." As night fell, Lyra walked through the palace gardens, thinking about the day. The palace was alive with whispered conversations, debates, and reflections. The courtiers had begun to reconsider everything they had believed about strength and value. Humans, they realized, brought a kind of power they had never measured, a power beyond physical ability or ancient wisdom. Lyra looked up at the twin moons rising in the sky. She knew there would be more tests, more challenges, and more questions. Humans would continue to surprise her, and she would continue to watch, learn, and understand. But today she had seen the truth. Human strength was real, extraordinary, and unlike anything the palace had experienced before. And in that truth, she felt hope. Hope for understanding, hope for alliances, and hope that the universe might be changed not by domination or fear, but by courage, perseverance, and the indomitable human spirit. The princess smiled to herself. The answer to her question Why humans continued despite overwhelming odds had been demonstrated, not spoken. And that answer would echo through the palace, changing minds, hearts, and perhaps the entire empire, forever. The palace of Aranthia had not been so alive in centuries. Its halls were filled with whispers of awe, curiosity, and cautious admiration. Everywhere Princess Lyra went, she noticed the shift in attitudes. Where skepticism once ruled, interest now lingered. The humans under Captain Mara Hayes had done more than stabilize the energy core and the defense system. They had changed minds. Yet Lyra knew the final test of perception was still to come. Words could inspire, small feats could impress, but true respect was earned only when courage met danger. It arrived sooner than expected. A tremor shook the palace at midday. The ground quivered beneath crystalline towers and alarms echoed through the corridors. Scientists and engineers rushed to the observation decks, their faces pale. Sensors indicated that a meteor storm was approaching, one unlike any seen before. Large fragments were heading directly for the palace, carrying enough force to devastate the outer city and destroy the fields that supplied energy and sustenance. The Aurelians panicked. Despite their ancient technology, they had never faced a threat of this magnitude so suddenly. Plans existed for normal space hazards, but nothing had prepared them for a concentrated strike aimed precisely at the palace. Courtiers argued over protocols, energy redirection, and evacuation plans, but fear made decision-making slow. Princess Lyra turned to Mara. "This is your moment," she said. "I want you to lead the effort. Show us what humans can do when faced with true danger." Mara's eyes were steady, calm as ever. "We will do everything we can. We will not let fear stop us." The human team moved immediately, assessing the trajectory of the meteor storm. Their methods were different from the Aurelians' usual approaches. Rather than relying solely on force fields or energy weapons, Mara analyzed patterns, predicting where the fragments would hit and how to minimize damage. She coordinated the humans and willing Aurelians, giving instructions that combined logic, creativity, and precise timing. "Focus on protecting the most vulnerable areas first," Mara instructed. "We will divide the effort. Humans and Aurelians must work together, each supporting the other. Small actions will save large portions of the palace." For hours, the palace became a scene of intense activity. Humans and Aurelians moved side by side, adjusting shields, reinforcing walls, and rerouting energy flows. When one barrier failed, Mara's team quickly adapted, using a combination of calculations and ingenuity to restore it. Every human action was precise yet flexible. Every adjustment seemed to anticipate the next challenge. The Aurelians watched in awe. Many had never seen patience, courage, and intelligence work together in such harmony. Some whispered that it was not the human strength that was extraordinary. It was the way they acted under pressure, remaining calm, focused, and unwavering even when the palace trembled around them. Princess Lyra stood on a high balcony observing the efforts. She realized that this was more than a test of skill. It was a test of spirit. The humans were not just responding to danger. They were inspiring confidence, rallying those around them, and showing that fear could be overcome by determination and teamwork. Suddenly, a large fragment struck the outer walls. Crystal shards flew in all directions, and a loud roar shook the palace. Some Aurelians froze in fear, but the humans did not hesitate. Mara immediately assessed the damage, issuing rapid instructions to redirect energy flows and stabilize weakened sections. Her voice remained calm, authoritative, and reassuring. The palace staff following her lead moved with precision. Where panic could have caused chaos, cooperation triumphed. The walls held, the energy grids adapted, and the threat was gradually mitigated. Hours passed and the meteor storm continued, but Mara's leadership kept the palace intact. Finally, the last fragment fell harmlessly into the surrounding fields. Silence settled over the palace as everyone absorbed the reality of what had just occurred. Princess Lyra descended to the main hall, where humans and Aurelians had gathered. The air was thick with relief, awe, and unspoken admiration. Courtiers who had doubted the humans now bowed their heads in respect. Elders who had sneered moments before now exchanged glances of wonder. Lyra approached Mara. "You have done more than I ever imagined," she said. "You have saved the palace, our people, and perhaps even the way we will think about life itself." Mara shook her head, smiling humbly. "I have done what humans do every day. We face challenges, adapt, and continue. That is all. No, Lyra replied firmly. This is more. You have proven that courage, intelligence, and perseverance can achieve what power alone cannot. You have shown the palace and all who watch that true strength is not only in what you can wield, but in how you act when everything seems lost. The courtiers began to speak among themselves, voices rising with excitement. I never thought humans could do this, one elder said. Another added, their minds, their coordination. It is remarkable. They are not weak at all. Lyra watched quietly, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. The humans had done more than save the palace. They had changed the way an entire civilization viewed them. They had shown that strength could come in forms beyond muscle, energy, or age. The human spirit, resilient, clever, and unwavering, was a power the Aurelians had never truly measured before. As night fell, the palace quieted. Humans returned to their quarters, tired but satisfied. Aurelians lingered in the halls, discussing the day, analyzing what they had witnessed and reconsidering long-held beliefs. Princess Lyra walked through the gardens alone, reflecting on everything she had seen. She realized that this was the turning point. The humans' courage and ingenuity had proven themselves beyond question. They had faced danger without hesitation, adapted under pressure, and inspired others in the process. The palace would never view humans the same way again, and yet Lyra knew there was still more to learn. Humans had shown what they could do under pressure, but she wanted to understand why they persisted, why they dared to face the unknown with courage that seemed impossible for such a small and fragile species. She returned to her chambers and wrote a note to Mara, inviting her to speak once more in private about humanity's journey, its history, and its spirit. Lyra wanted to hear the human perspective, not from observation, but from understanding. The answer to the question that had started it all. Why do humans continue despite all odds? Mara arrived at dusk. She entered the princess's chamber, her expression calm yet attentive. Lyra motioned for her to sit by the window, where the twin moons reflected off the crystalline palace floor. Captain Hayes, Lyra began, I have watched your people accomplish what no one thought possible. You have saved this palace, inspired its people, and changed minds. But I want to understand something deeper. Why? Why do humans continue even when challenges seem impossible? What drives you? Mara took a deep breath. Princess, humans are a curious and determined species. We are small, fragile, and young compared to many others. But we have learned that life is full of challenges. We do not always have the best tools, the most power, or the easiest path. Yet we continue because we have something that cannot be measured. Hope, will, and the desire to create, explore, and protect. Even when we fail, we try again. Even when the odds are against us, we act. That is why humans endure. Lyra listened, captivated. She realized that this explanation was not about power, nor about conquest, nor about glory. It was about persistence, courage, and belief in a future that was not yet written. The human spirit, she understood, was a force the Aurelians had never measured, and it was extraordinary. As Mara spoke, the princess felt a growing determination herself. She wanted to share this understanding with the palace. She wanted every Aurelian, from the youngest apprentice to the oldest elder, to see that true strength came from courage, heart, and the will to persevere. Mara concluded, we humans are not perfect. We are flawed, small, and fragile, but we are also capable of greatness, not because we are the strongest, but because we refuse to give up, even when the universe pushes us down. That is the answer, Princess. That is why we continue. The words echoed in Lyra's mind. She looked out over the palace gardens, the twin moons shining above, and smiled. The humans had shown her and the palace a new way to measure strength, a way that relied not on force but on spirit. And she knew with certainty that this was only the beginning. The palace of Aranthia had never been quieter or more alive. Its halls were calm yet buzzing with anticipation. Word of the humans' courage, ingenuity, and spirit had spread throughout the city like wildfire. No longer were the humans seen as weak or fragile. Now every Aurelian, from the highest elder to the youngest apprentice, watched them with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and awe. Princess Lyra walked through the grand halls, her mind alive with excitement. She had observed the humans through storms, through emergencies, and through challenges no Aurelian could have predicted. She had asked the questions that no one else dared ask. and she had received the answers not as mere words but as actions, as demonstrations of courage, ingenuity, and persistence. Today, she would make those answers known to all. She had called for a grand assembly in the central courtyard, where every member of the palace and city leaders from nearby settlements would gather. The twin suns shone high above, reflecting off the crystalline towers, illuminating the plaza with golden light. Humans and Aurelians alike filled the courtyard. Mara Hayes stood beside her team, calm yet confident as they watched the assembly gather. The humans were no longer just guests. They were participants, teachers, and symbols of courage. Princess Lyra stepped onto the raised platform at the center of the courtyard. Her silver robes glimmered in the sunlight, and her voice rang clear across the crowd. "Citizens of Aranthia," she began. "For centuries we have believed that strength comes only from power, skill, or ancient knowledge. We have measured worth by ability, size, and dominance, but we have been shown a truth that cannot be ignored. We have been shown a kind of strength beyond what we have ever known." The crowd murmured, curiosity and anticipation rising. The princess gestured toward Mara and the human team. "These humans," Lyra continued, "are not the strongest in body, nor the oldest in years, nor the most powerful in energy, and yet they have accomplished what many of our greatest minds believed impossible. They have faced dangers we could not control, adapted when systems failed, and inspired courage in those around them." The courtyard was silent. Every eye turned toward the humans, absorbing the princess's words. Some Aurelians could not hide their surprise, while others stared in disbelief. Mara stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "We humans do not claim greatness because of our strength, our technology, or our skill. We claim it because of our persistence, our courage, and our will to keep going. We face challenges, learn from our mistakes, and support one another. That is why we survive. That is why we continue, and that is why we can achieve what seems impossible." The words hung in the air, carried by a quiet power. The Aurelians felt the truth in them, not as a lesson, but as an experience they had already witnessed. They had seen the humans save the palace from destruction, stabilize systems that no Aurelian could, and inspire courage when fear threatened to overwhelm. Lyra raised her hand, silencing the murmurs. "Today I declare that humans are no longer to be seen as weak, small, or fragile. They are beings of courage, ingenuity, and perseverance. They have shown us a new form of strength, one that cannot be measured by size, energy, or ancient wisdom alone. Their power lies in spirit, determination, and heart. And that power deserves respect, recognition, and alliance." The crowd erupted into applause, cheers, and exclamations of awe. The Aurelians, many of whom had never openly celebrated anyone outside their race, now clapped for the humans. They had witnessed the impossible, and they understood that humans were capable of remarkable things. Lyra turned to Mara. "Captain Hayes, you and your team have changed the way we see your people. You have taught us a lesson we will not forget. I am honored to declare that humans will now be recognized as allies, equals, and partners in the future of Aranthia and beyond." Mara bowed respectfully. "Princess Lyra, it has been an honor to demonstrate the human spirit. We do not seek praise, only understanding. If we have earned your trust and respect, that is enough." Lyra smiled warmly. "You have earned more than trust. You have earned admiration, respect, and a place in our history. Today marks a new era, an era where humans and Aurelians work together, learn from one another, and explore the stars side by side." The crowd continued to cheer, and the humans smiled quietly, their humility intact. They had not acted for recognition. They had acted because it was necessary, because it was their way of being. And yet the recognition they received was monumental. For the first time, humans were seen not as fragile outsiders, but as equals with a unique and extraordinary power. Later that evening, Princess Lyra walked through the palace gardens with Mara. The twin moons cast silver light across the crystalline flowers, and the gentle breeze carried the faint hum of the city. "You have done more than I could have imagined," Lyra said softly. "You have shown us what humans are capable of. But most importantly, you have shown why you persist, why you endure, and why your species will continue to grow." Mara nodded. "We face challenges because we must. We act because we hope. And we continue because giving up is not an option. That is all, Princess. That is why humans endure." Lyra looked at her thoughtfully. "It is a simple answer, yet it changes everything. The palace, the empire, and perhaps the galaxy itself may never see humans the same way again. Mara smiled faintly. Sometimes all it takes is one question and one answer to change how the world sees a species. You asked and we answered. Lyra's eyes glimmered with determination. And now we will build a future based on that understanding. Humans will be welcomed, respected, and counted as equals. Together we will explore, protect, and shape the universe in ways we could not have imagined before. The humans spent the next days integrating with the palace staff, teaching, learning, and sharing ideas. Their presence was no longer seen as unusual. It was inspiring. The Aurelians adopted new methods, learned to think in ways that emphasized adaptability, teamwork, and persistence. Slowly, the palace and its people transformed, influenced not by power alone but by the courage and spirit of humans. Princess Lyra observed all of this with quiet pride. She had asked a question, received an answer, and allowed that answer to guide change. The humans had proven that strength could be measured not only by might or skill, but by determination, heart, and the refusal to give up. One evening, she stood on a balcony overlooking the palace city, the twin moons shining high above. Mara and her team walked below, interacting with the Aurelians, sharing knowledge and inspiring hope. Lyra realized that a single answer had begun a revolution, not of force but of understanding. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were allies, friends, and examples of what could be achieved when spirit met opportunity. She smiled softly to herself. It began with a question, and one answer has changed everything. And in that moment, the palace, the city, and perhaps the galaxy itself had seen the beginning of a new era, an era where humans would be recognized for what they truly were: resilient, courageous, inventive, and unbreakable in spirit. The stars above seemed brighter than ever, as if acknowledging the shift, and below the humans continued their work, not seeking glory but proving that sometimes the simplest answers carry the greatest power. For Princess Lyra, and for the entire palace, the lesson was clear. True strength is not in might, not in longevity, and not in technology. It is in courage, persistence, and the unwavering human spirit. And that understanding would shape the future for generations to come.